and puts his arm round her.
Her eyes are open.
He kisses her cheek.
Her breath is shallow.
Like he always does.
Morning.
Morning. He makes breakfast.
She's in a daze. Her eyes look like they're looking into a pool of shallow water. Are you okay?
Yeah.
How's your head?
What?
Well, the playwright obviously wanted to explore the question of what is rape and what isn't rape. And to do that, obviously, he had to create a scenario where there was a real question mark about whether it was and whether it wasn't. And he also had to make the behavior
as a business. If somebody wants to lease a headquarters from us, we'll lease them a headquarters. If they want to have flexible space, we'll lease a flexible space. So work from home or work from not in headquarters is to our interest. So all of those play out in the same way. And that's been sort of the macro trend that the company's been built on. So this particular thing, I think, is more informative about what we're actually seeing. It's very consistent with what we're seeing out in the marketplace. And what you're going to see is that people are increasingly interested in how do I retain my people? How do I do it in a way that's consistent with the value that I need to deliver to my end user? And how does that differ by department and create much more of a custom model than everybody comes in 9 to 5 every day into headquarters? And that's what we're seeing. And this is just sort of a more refined view so that other people can see what we're seeing in ourselves.
I think that's really important that you, like a lot of other global CEOs that I've been talking to, said, listen, we saw the virus and the impact early because we were over in Asia. We've also seen the recovery earlier because we are in Asia. But what you're seeing in China is showing that people want this flexibility and they want to do it differently.
Well, that's what we've started to see, right? So in China, we've got 80% of the people back. In Asia, we probably got, 70% of people back in general. In Europe, we're probably seeing something that operates a little bit more like 50, and in the U.S., it's in the high 30s that we're back to kind of normal. And you're starting to see things like we have a set of offerings where people can go into any building, and that's where we're seeing a lot of pickup on as well. So people who say, okay, I want to be able to choose where I go at any moment in time. So I think this is something we've been building to as technology has played itself out, and now we're starting to see it come to a head.
That's WeWork President Shyam Gittimal.
He had lots of statistics to share about working from home and how employees see it and senior level execs. So definitely check out that complete interview. You can find that at Bloomberg.com. Still to come, though, on Bloomberg Business Week, we take a look inside gender equity in the beauty industry. Not so pretty.
This is Bloomberg.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the Terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience. Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of prime services, shares how we help you consider everything.
In today's ever-evolving environment, the team at Pershing's Prime Services wants to know, what are you focused on now? Are you confident in the stability of your counterparty? Do you feel they can help you grow your business? When it comes to fundraising, do you have access to the mindset of the advisor or have what you need to navigate the ODD process? Exceptional service for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your demands, so you can focus on growing your business and producing results for your clients.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. As we transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, many fossil fuel jobs are transitioning as well. Many oil field workers are finding that their skills can transfer, according to Bloomberg reporter Josh Saul.
If you just think of a guy or a gal who's good with their hands and good at working up on an oil rig, there are skills that are transferable to them then working up on a wind turbine.
But it can be challenging, especially when it comes to wages.
I interviewed a guy who had been making $1,600 a day rate in the oil fields of Texas, and when I talked to him, he was working on a wind farm up in Minnesota, making a lot less than he used to.
Companies that have in the past placed roughnecks in oil field jobs face a similar transition, such as Workrise, based in Austin, Texas.
They like to place workers building solar farms or fixing wind turbines that have been damaged by lightning, and they want to keep going in that direction.
Workrise sees job training as part of its future. It trained about 400 workers in 2019 and over 2,200 last year. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/seize change.
It takes coordination to read the latest business news while spreading jam on toast.
Whoops.
Listening takes no effort at all.
It had a major beat on industrial free cash flow.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
President Biden is pushing up the timeline.
Karen Moscow and Nathan Hager.
We have a deal in the gambling industry.
Weekday mornings at 5 Eastern.
Officials have a warning for hedge fund managers.
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
A gunman is still at large after a mass shooting in Austin, Texas. Emergency crews confirmed 3 people are dead and the scene is still active. Police ask people to avoid the Arboretum area in the northwest part of the city. The attorney for George Floyd's family says America needs to have a racial reckoning and end the killing of black people by police. On ABC's This Week, Ben Crump says the only way to stop emotional protests is to send the message that police killing black people is unacceptable. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is accused of killing Floyd. Closing arguments in his case begin Monday. New York police stopped unscheduled days off in anticipation of that verdict in the Chauvin murder trial. The city's police commissioner says the department is bracing to handle possible riots. That's the latest. I'm Cameron Fairchild.
And I'm Susanna Palmer in the Bloomberg newsroom. Cryptocurrencies are getting crushed today. Bitcoin, the biggest cryptocurrency, fell as much as 15% before regaining some. Several online reports attributed the plunge to speculation the U.S. Treasury may crack down on money laundering that's carried out through digital assets. Turkey is banning crypto as a form of payment at the end of the month, and other countries, including India, are also said to be considering a ban. Hospitalizations in New York State due to COVID-19 dropped to their lowest level in more than 4 months. Governor Andrew Cuomo announced the figures yesterday. The governor also announced that 27.6% of New Yorkers have now completed their coronavirus vaccine series. Investors will be watching Apple and reports on home sales in the coming week. We get more from Bloomberg's Karen Moscow.
Apple's first product unveiling of the year comes Tuesday. A new iPod Pro line and accessory dubbed AirTags for tracking physical devices, and new iMac desktops may be introduced. Thursday, we get a report that could show existing home sales eased in March, but still remained at robust levels. We also get the weekly report on initial jobless claims. New home sales are out Friday. Karen Moscow, Bloomberg Radio.
Sexual harassment is prohibited under state and federal law, but it's not a crime. Newsday reports 2 bills in Albany would change that by creating the nation's first sexual harassment crime, punishable by jail time rather than fines or firing allowed under civil law. The bills would elevate sexual harassment to a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail. Advocates say it would be a powerful new tool to address the misconduct now handled by negotiations with employers, through government agencies under civil law, or by lawsuits. Global news, 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Susanna Palmer. This is Bloomberg.
Broadcasting from the financial capital of the world, Bloomberg 1130 in New York. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 1061. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
This past year, we have had many conversations about inequities. Willa Company is out with an inside look at gender equity in professional beauty. Here to share what they found and talk about our industry, which was shut down by the pandemic, is Willa Company CEO Annie Young-Scrivener.
You know, we conducted this report to really better understand the state of the professional services industry. And in beauty, you are right. 89% of people in this industry are female. The reality is, as we found out, majority of the decision-making are still held by men.
How is that possible? Can I ask you, I'm just like sitting here thinking, how is that possible?
I think that as you look at a lot of the bigger companies, beauty companies, as I look at my peer group, a lot of them are still men. It's Sue, Nabi, Cody, and myself that are women. A lot of them are ran by men today. And I think one of the ways that we could address that is by making sure every opening, every promotion, we have an equal slate.
Right.
A slate that's diverse, people of color, gender, and we always want to make sure it's the best candidate. But if we start with that lens,
right,
people will bubble up.
You've been in this industry, you've been in the consumer product industry for many years. What is it that still continues to hold women back?
I think that, making sure that we have the right slating, and to make sure that we have development programs where we're pulling people, women, and also people of color forward is going to be really critical. When you're diverse, gender-wise or ethnically, you never want to get the job because of your color or your gender. You want to make sure that you're the best. I think that is a big role. I think the second piece for women is, particularly during the pandemic, you saw women fall back, and it's because when kids are not in school, they're at home, we're still a majority of the caretakers. So making sure that we have the flexibility in organization is not only going to help women, it's also going to help men. So I think those are really critical. The last thing I would say is education. Making sure that every organization continues to invest in education, whether it's leadership development classes, for our industry, we have really looked at education critically, and to ensure that during the pandemic, we were also making sure that we were giving lessons to our clients, to our partners, so that they could elevate their skill set. I think those would be really key.
One thing I want to ask you, and this is a conversation I'm increasingly having as we talk about the importance of D&I, diversity and inclusion, and yet I recently had someone on who was creating a SPAC and it was all women, and I said, well, wait a minute, we've shown that diversity is what really propels the top and bottom line. That's where you get the most, out of a company where you have mixture of thought, men and women, people from all different kinds of backgrounds. How do you approach that at your company? I know in this research that you say in just the 3 months since the company was formed on December 1st, 2020, 70% of your new hires have been women. I applaud you, but I do wonder, how do you balance the importance of making sure women are hired and seen and given, opportunities to advance, but also making sure you balance it with diversity of thought among your employee base?
It's a great question. I always start with the consumer. I think that any company that is consumer-centric will win because you'll understand their needs and you'll create the right innovation and services. And the reality is 85% of purchasing power is still held by women. We are in an industry that we serve mostly women. Men are also important. And at the end of the day, what you want is you want that diversity, and you want people to think differently so that you don't have the same blind spot. And for us, what we look at is a very diverse slate, and then the best candidate, you have to choose the best candidate. You can't say, I'm going to pick that person because they're a woman.
Yeah, being aware of our blind spots, that is so important going forward. That's Anna Young-Scrivener, the CEO of Wella Company.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week, and coming up, we're talking about something that's pretty close to me because I have an Amazon problem. We order a lot from Amazon. We do. And I try to separate it. Like we try to put stuff in our cart.
Yeah.
So we order like one big order a week, but it doesn't end up happening oftentimes. And I feel a lot of guilt getting all of these boxes, opening them up and seeing that there's only like a couple things in them.
Right.
And then carrying them from my apartment to the recycling. Like I think a lot about the environmental impact of that.
We feel the same thing. Like we'll put out our garbage on garbage night and we put all the recycling. We're like, oh my God, those are all the boxes from our family. We saw a lot of it really over the last years. We would kind of walk around the neighborhood because everybody was ordering online. Lots of boxes on the curb.
Well, one executive seeing a business opportunity here, former Jet.com founder Nate Faust, is looking to consolidate your boxes.
This is Bloomberg.
You're tracking
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg terminal, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network that helps power global markets. Isn't it time you join them? Bloomberg.com/professional.
pandemic.
You are front and center when it comes to the COVID supply chain.
From the latest data points to the stocks of the vaccine manufacturers.
This looks like it's going to be an effective vaccine.
Which means you're following Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern. Carol Masser and Bloomberg Quick Takes Tim Stenivek.
Pfizer may be having a new pill to treat the virus.
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
For the Jewish Communal Fund, past president Noel Spiegel.
People often ask me why it's important to use JCF for their charitable giving. I tell them that JCF has a profound impact on our community. Thanks to the revenue generated from our funds, JCF makes an annual $2 million grant to UJA Federation of New York and makes grants from our endowment, the Special Gifts Fund. This year, we proudly granted more than $800,000 to support a kosher food pantry at Mid-Island YJCC, Jewish daycare at the Ed Alliance, a renovation at Camp Oakhurst, and an intergenerational Holocaust program at Ramaz. I'd like you to hear about our impact from a past Special Gifts Fund recipient.
Plaza Jewish Community Chapel is most grateful to JCF for supplying seed money to start the organization. Almost 10,000 families have relied on Plaza to provide an affordable yet dignified Jewish funeral.
Let JCF maximize your impact. Visit jcfny.org or call 212-752-8277.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
More signs inflation is already here, at least for now. Manufacturers are facing a sharp increase in prices for processed goods like ball bearings, fuel, chemicals, steel, and plastics. Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, says you're already seeing the result in higher prices for things like home supplies and new and used cars. But he says any big price jumps will likely be temporary.
It'll be product by product, depends on the market and what's going on exactly in that industry. But, I think broadly, we'll see these price spikes abate by summer and pretty much be gone by fall.
And Sandy says prices could actually go down again if you're patient.
If you can't put it off for these things that are having price spikes, it's probably a good idea to do so.
But he also says inflation isn't going away altogether, and that means in the long run, your paycheck likely won't stretch as far. Unless...
Hopefully you'll get bigger pay increases to compensate, but that depends.
Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
When thought leaders speak with David Weston,
he is president of the Rockefeller Foundation.
There's a real conversation.
Is there anything they can do at this point to improve that situation?
And a path forward just seems clearer.
There is a race on between coronavirus and getting a vaccine into the arms of a critical mass of potential victims.
Bloomberg Balance of Power.
You worked at the Defense Department. You were involved in national security.
Weekdays at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The following is a message from PGIM.
Welcome to Outsea in 60, Perspectives from PGIM Thought Leaders. Here's Lisa Davis, Impact Investing Portfolio Manager at PGIM Real Estate.
I think we used to believe in ESG circles that climate change was the great systemic risk to financial markets that we needed to find a way to account for, and the challenge was to connect the individual investments that we were making to addressing climate risk at a systemic level. I think the challenge now that I see is that inequality around the globe is an equally important systemic risk, often connected to climate risk, that we have to address in financial markets.
Hear more PGIM perspectives at pgim.com. That's pgim.com. Partner with PGIM, the investment management business of Prudential. These statements are not intended to be investment advice and should not be used as the basis for any investment decision.
When we say Bloomberg brings you the latest financial and business news anywhere, we've actually given the matter quite a bit of thought.
Let's get now to our guest joining us from Bangkok.
She joins us on the phone from the Hudson Valley.
Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. World markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is Bloomberg 1130. Now, a global news update.
A gunman is still at large after a mass shooting in Austin, Texas. Emergency crews confirm 3 people are dead, and the scene is still active. Police ask people to avoid the Arboretum area in the northwest part of the city. The attorney for George Floyd's family says America needs to have a racial reckoning and end the killing of black people by police. On ABC's This Week, Ben Crump says the only way to stop emotional protests is to send the message that police killing black people is unacceptable. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is accused of killing Floyd. Closing arguments in his case begin Monday. New York police stop unscheduled days off in anticipation of that verdict in the Chauvin murder trial. The city's police commissioner says the department is bracing to handle possible riots. That's the latest. I'm Cameron Fairchild.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Bloomberg Quick Takes Tim Stenovic from Bloomberg Radio.
Our next guest gets e-commerce big time. He's co-founder of Jet.com, which was then sold to Walmart for $3.3 billion. That was back in 2016. Bloomberg Business Week magazine, they have been all over this company.
Yeah, I still remember that cover. I wasn't even working here at the time, but that was the first time I ever heard of Jet.com when I saw it on the cover of Bloomberg Business Week. And what an incredible e-commerce story. I mean, the company was so young and sold for such a huge sum.
And it was a big deal for Walmart. It really kind of moved them very quickly and aggressively into online when they had kind of been behind.
Well, earlier this year, Nate Faust, one of the co-founders of Jet.com, debuted a delivery service called Olive that consolidates orders from fashion labels, including Michael Kors, Adidas, Saks, and more. For how it works and how it's going, we spoke with Olive founder Nate Faust.
We started Olive a little over a year ago. In fact, actually, just about a year ago coming up. And when we initially started exploring it, it wasn't triggered by the pandemic. It was triggered by just a broader desire to do something with a social or environmental impact for my next adventure. And with COVID and the increase in how much people are shopping online, the number of deliveries that people are experiencing, I think the pain points and the obvious environmental impact of just the sheer amount of deliveries that we're getting, and not just from the packaging, but just the sheer number of delivery trucks that are stopping at each of our houses, which I'll say that's probably been the most eye-opening thing over the last year, looking out my front window and every single day seeing 2, 3, 4, sometimes more delivery trucks stop at my home.
Yeah, listen, I think about it when we're ordering Amazon and it's like, how are you about kind of putting this all into one order? And I'm like, yes, I can wait a couple of days to get something. Tell me, though, how Olive works, Nate.
Sure. So you sign up, you download our app or on our site at shopolive.com. It's a free service to consumers. When you sign up, we create for you what we call your Olive address, and that's sort of your personal storage space at one of our consolidation centers, which we have 2 of them, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And then when you shop with Olive at any of the sort of 100 or so retailers that we have affiliate relationships with, when you're going through the checkout process, either on desktop with the help of our Chrome extension or on an iPhone through our app, we help you insert that Olive address at checkout, and then the retailers pick, pack, and ship those orders like they normally would. They ship to our consolidation centers. We hold on to them for a couple of days until it's time for what we call your Olive Day, which is the one day, or in the case of New York City, you have 2 days per week that all of your orders come together, delivered in one single, reusable, secure, two-way shipper. And just one thing to call out there, very transparently at this initial outset, we're not eliminating the box from the source. The retailers are still picking and packing into the boxes, shipping them to us, but we are getting what in the long run is actually the bigger environmental impact, which is the consolidation of multiple deliveries into a single delivery, which we're getting about what we call our sort of consolidation factor, about a 25% consolidation factor in terms of delivering more to a consumer's doorstep than would have previously been delivered in the status quo.
I like to understand the impact, especially since you're concerned about the environment, sustainability, that by using your service, how do we cut down on our carbon footprint by all of the, e-commerce that we're doing and all the delivery that goes along with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you look at the carbon footprint of the sort of post-purchase e-commerce supply chain, which is the piece that we're focused on, the biggest chunk of that, somewhere in the 50 to 60% range, comes from that sort of proverbial last mile of the truck stopping at consumers' homes, and the remaining half, sort of 40%, is split roughly evenly between packaging and then what's called sort of the first and middle mile of getting that thing from the fulfillment center or store that it's coming from to the point of the final last mile delivery. And what we're tackling initially through this concept of consolidation is that largest chunk, which is the last mile delivery. Now, I know, as you pointed out, obviously those things are being delivered to us, but they're being delivered in bulk. So we get one delivery per day from each of FedEx and UPS and other potential carriers at each of our facilities with all of the various orders. And then when we deliver them to consumers, we're getting on average about 1.25 shipments into every delivery that we make. So that would be roughly a 20% reduction on that sort of last mile for those packages to that consumer's home. But obviously, two pieces there. One, it's apparel only for right now, and so there's lots of things that you can't purchase through affiliated retailers with Olive, and that will enable a much greater impact in the long term as we're able to service broader sets of categories. And then two, as I mentioned before, we're not eliminating the packaging from the source, but we're actually in the midst right now of working with our very first retailer to actually integrate directly with their supply chain, where we would provide the packaging in their fulfillment centers so that they pick and pack their orders into that from the source. And that will be the goal over time, to, as volume supports it, with each of the retailers on the platform, to do that more direct integration to eliminate the packaging.
Right. So in other words, to help them to kind of be better when it comes to their environmental impact. Because I'm right. Is that fair?
Totally.
Yeah. Hey,
both from environmental impact and from a customer experience perspective, because there's other benefits that come from the Olive delivery experience, especially from the consumer side of things. Not only do they not have to deal with the hassle of managing the waste from the delivery, if they have any returns, they just put it straight back in the packaging, leave it on their doorstep, and we pick it up.
That's really interesting. Well, and part of your value is also going to be in, or at least part of your attraction, I guess I should say, is the retailers on your site. And there's a bunch that are certainly, in my wheelhouse. Rag & Bone, there's Aloe, there's a lot of them, Anthropologie. So you're definitely catching my attention here. How quickly are you signing up a lot more retailers? How easy is that to do?
Sure. So we've had a ton of outreach following our launch. Around 6 weeks ago or so was our sort of unveiling of the service to the public. So we have a sort of backlog of retailers that we've signed up as affiliate partners. It's probably 50% more than what's already on the site. From the retailer side of things, we make it very low effort, so it's easy to come onto the platform. But there is some configuration on our side to make sure that full Olive address thing that we were talking about before, that assisted entry process for customers is working smoothly before we turn them live on the platform.
That's Nate Faust, the founder of Olive.
In the magazine this week, another edition of Bloomberg Business Week Talks, featuring an interview with Arnold Donald, the CEO of Carnival Cruise. We talked about the industry as a whole and when he expects ships to get back into U.S. ports.
We have 9 brands, Carol, so about 59 of our 90 ships are not under the conditional sail order. They don't sail in the U.S. anyway. And so there we are already active and sailing. And we've announced sailings in the UK. We've announced sailings in Greece. AIDA, our German brands, are already sailing from the Canary Islands, all on a limited basis at this point, but it's movement in the right direction. And we're optimistic that we'll be able to do the same here and continue the dialogue with the CDC. I think one of the big issues here is the relative mentality around risk. So today, you could board a plane, fly to a country, get on a cruise ship and sail, fly back from that country and come back to the United States. You have to do certain testing, et cetera, but you can do that. And today, even if vaccinated, you can't get on a cruise ship in the U.S. And that's whether you're vaccinated or not in terms of what you could do from the U.S. Going somewhere else to get on a cruise ship. And if you look at other travel and entertainment sectors, you talked about spring break down in Miami, or you look at arenas where people are starting to be able to attend sporting events, restaurants, hotels, resorts, air travel. There's a level of risk management and mitigation. And so we would like to just be treated similarly to the rest of the travel and tourism sector.
That's Carnival CEO Arnold Donald. Check out more of the interview. It's in the magazine. It's online, on newsstands, and of course, on the Bloomberg terminal and also on our podcast feed. And that wraps up the weekend edition of Bloomberg Business Week from Bloomberg Radio. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carol Masser.
And I'm Tim Stennebeck. Be sure to tune into our Bloomberg Business Week daily show. It's Monday through Friday. It starts at 2 p.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Radio.
You can also watch our daily broadcast on YouTube. Just search Bloomberg Global News.
Also, check out our Bloomberg Business Week podcast. You can find it at Bloomberg.com, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's where you'll find the full interviews from many of our guests in the weekend show. Bloomberg Business Week, it's available on newsstands now at Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg terminal.
And you can also see me on Bloomberg Quick Take. It's available at Bloomberg.com/QT and streaming platforms like Roku, Apple TV, Samsung TV, and more. Have a good weekend.
This is Bloomberg.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Are financial services firms managing in this new reality? Claire Santaniello, Managing Director at BNY Mellon's Pershing, explains.
If the current times have taught us anything, it's the critical role that technology plays in client relationships. Global conditions have created a business imperative for firms to digitally transform the way they meet client needs and the way they work. Pershing's industry-leading technology enables you to adapt to the evolving ways your clients want to do business, now and in the future, and can help you build an even stronger digital client experience in a simpler, smarter, and safer environment. We have worked with clients of every size to transform their business. Pershing gives you the foundation to stand on, plus our unique perspective, to help you run your business even during the most uncertain of times. We help you consider everything.
To learn more about how Pershing can help you transform your business, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
The only way to start the morning is with optimism.
The jobs recovery was sluggish. A lot of people agree on that.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrow, and Lisa Abramowitz.
Finally, we got some Abramowitz gloom to get in there.
The ultimate sales signal might be when Lisa capitulates.
Bloomberg Surveillance. Must listen, must watch.
Lisa, your data point, go.
Tom, you're great. Never change.
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Television.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills, the kind of skills that companies need to build real products, and the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Broadcasting 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Police are searching the northwest part of the Texas capital city of Austin for a triple murderer. Police say the shooting happened at an apartment complex near a shopping mall during a domestic argument. Officers have also shut down part of a nearby highway. They do not believe there's any threat to the public, but want people to stay indoors and report any suspicious activity. The attorney for George Floyd's family says America needs to have a racial reckoning and end the killing of black people by police.
If we don't, then people are going to continue to have these emotional protests, and killing unarmed black people is unacceptable.
On ABC's This Week, Benjamin Crump says the culture and behavior of police must change. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is accused of killing Floyd. The New York Police Department calls a halt to unscheduled days off in anticipation of a verdict in the Chauvin murder trial. Ashok Bala reports.
Closing arguments in the former Minneapolis cop's trial are set for Monday, and NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea says the department has been planning how to handle potential protests for quite some time. Last year, the unrest following the police custody death of George Floyd resulted in a lawsuit from New York Attorney General Tish James. She called attention to a pattern of excessive, brutal, and unlawful force against protesters. In addition to the police department, the lawsuit also charges the city, Mayor de Blasio, Shea, and former Chief of Department Terry Monahan with a variety of failures that caused human rights violations.
The Reverend Jesse Jackson joins protesters in Minnesota. 300 people gathered outside the police department for a seventh night to mark the death of Daunte Wright, killed by police during a traffic stop. I'm Cameron Fairchild. The State Department orders non-essential diplomats to leave Chad because of insurgent attacks on its capital.
The African nation is going through an election where its longtime president, Idris Deby, is expected to continue his 3-decade rule. The U.S. said in a travel alert, armed non-governmental groups in northern Chad are moving south toward the capital. It warns of possible violence and orders non-essential employees to leave by commercial airline. I'm Jim Forbes.
51 West Point cadets will be allowed to return to the academy after a cheating scandal. Liz Warner has the story.
Of 73 candidates caught up in the U.S. Military Academy's worst cheating scandal in decades, most will now be required to repeat the year. Several cadets had already resigned, and 8 were expelled following last year's incident involving a calculus exam taken remotely due to the pandemic. West Point also announcing the end of its willful admission process, which allowed students violating the school's honor code to stay at the academy by admitting fault and accepting punishment.
NASA hopes to get the first flight of its Mars helicopter off the ground Monday morning.
The space agency announced Saturday the flight of the Ingenuity Mars helicopter is scheduled for 3:30 a.m. Eastern Monday. The 4-pound helicopter first arrived on the Martian surface February 18th with its parent, the Perseverance rover. It was hoping to do the flight last week, but ran into problems. You can catch it on NASA television, the app, nasa.gov, on social media, and YouTube. I'm Dean Uchel.
The Lyrid meteor shower is filling the night sky with shimmering light this week. The Lyrid activity started Saturday and will be visible through the 25th. Peak viewing is from midnight, April 21st, to dawn, April 22nd. I'm Cameron Fairchild.
And I'm Susanna Palmer in the Bloomberg newsroom. Cryptocurrencies are having a Coinbase hangover today. Bitcoin and others, including Ethereum, are tumbling. At one point, Bitcoin was down as much as 15%, but has since regained some of that lost ground. The weekend carnage comes after a week that saw the value of all coins surge past $2.25 trillion. That amid the frenzy of demand for all things crypto in the run-up to Coinbase's direct listing on Wednesday. Having made the New York Yankees opening day roster, Jay Bruce says he couldn't stomach his poor start to the season. So the 3-time All-Star outfielder has decided to retire at age 34 after today's game against Tampa Bay. Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini has more.
Bruce went to spring training with the Yankees on a minor league contract and made the major league roster as a first baseman when Luke Voit injured a knee. Bruce is hitting .118 with 1 homer and 3 RBIs in 39 plate appearances. He started the first 8 games at first base, but just 2 of the next 7. And his retirement decision will cost him over $1,219,000 in salary for the remainder of the season. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
A New York City cocktail bar has become a viral sensation for its offbeat location, a Manhattan subway station. The husband and wife owners have even been honored by the city's Mass Transit Authority for their determination to keep the so-called subway speakeasy open even through the pandemic. Co-owner Jay Peary says he found the unlikely space in a newspaper real estate listing.
I was very intrigued and I came down to visit it. And it was very, I fell in love with the space and the possibilities.
Well, if you'd like to grab a drink at Lenoxie, the so-called subway speakeasy, head to the 28th Street subway station in Chelsea and be ready to wait your turn. There's a 1,500-person waiting list. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Susanna Palmer. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports.
We're in a situation that we haven't dealt with in modern times.
The pandemic here has really accelerated the investments that we've been advocating for years.
From a macro standpoint, I think our sport industry is really forced to look at the business a little bit differently.
In-depth conversations with the leaders in the sports industry.
Esports is a good aberration. We're still moving forward. We're part of something much bigger than sport right now. The health and safety of our stakeholders is what's most important.
Every moment, I think we're all from a business perspective thinking about the impact that the virus is having across the country.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Kelly.
And I'm Mike Lynch.
And I'm Michael Barr. Over the next hour, we will explore the big money issues in the world of sports and talk to some of the biggest players in the industry.
All right, guys, lots going on in sports, and the Masters continues to resonate in various ways. I will say my favorite thing on sort of a light note was, I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but the pictures of the champion at the Atlanta airport with the green jacket like slung over over the chair at Hartsfield. I love that so much. But one of the really resonant images, a series of images, one positive, one negative, in a way, was Lee Elder, certainly the positive. Let's hear what he had to say.
My heart is very soft this morning. Soft because of the wonderful things that I have encountered since arriving here on Monday and being able to see some of the great friends that I have made over the past years.
First of all, let's just talk about Lee Elder for a minute. And I will say, you know, Michael Barr, I was grateful to you because when we spoke with Billy Andrade last week ahead of the Masters and we talked with Brett Pulley as well, our Atlanta bureau chief, about what was going on, you know, you referenced Lee Elder and how important he was to the game of golf. And it was a very poignant moment. And then, of course, Lynchy, someone's got to come along and ruin it. Yeah. Gary Player was up there with him, one of the two people that Lee Elder referenced, Jack Nicklaus being the other, of course. And Gary Player's son, come on, man.
I kind of noticed it when it was happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't usually hold a sleeve of balls horizontally. You hold them vertically. And you take the ball out of the top and you put the sleeve back in the bag. But this, he admitted it, Wayne Player, one of Gary's sons, said, I thought it'd be cool to know what ball my dad was teeing off with. And this has charged a firestorm. Obviously, there's a family feud going on with the Players' family. His brother Mark is not a big fan of his brother Wayne. There are reports that unconfirmed that he has been booted off the grounds of Augusta National permanently. But this is a brand of ball that his dad has formed an alliance with, Encore. They make a bunch of different balls called Vero. It's not a big ball that people use. I did some research. The three most notable people that use that ball are Ezekiel Elliott, Charles Schwab, and Josh Allen, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. So nobody on tour is using it. But yeah, I thought it was a little disrespectful, especially in that particular moment. With Lee Elder standing there, it was an emotional moment with the players from Payne College, a number of African-American golf professionals in the background. It reminded me of the 99 All-Star game when John Henry Williams made his dad wear a hat that said hitter.net and a shirt, hitter.net, when they took him out in a golf cart and he met the greatest living players in the history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and of course the bogus moment, as it were, was, you know, Wayne holding this sleeve of golf balls horizontally and clearly edging them into the shot, you know, into the live shot, and then a lot of the still photos. So not in good taste. And listen, we know, all of us, and certainly from talking to our friends on the PGA, the Masters, Augusta National, they do not mess around. and that is not cool.
Manning calling signals, takes the snap, looks left, lobs it left, Burris is wide open, touchdown Giants! In the left corner of the end zone, with 35 seconds to go, and the Giants regain the lead. Manning to Burris.
Manning to Burris. Manning to Burris. That was historic in many ways. And the reason we're rubbing it in a little bit, sorry, Lynchy, is because had you been able to bet, and you were betting on the New York Football Giants at that point, they were a 12-point underdog. Well, guess what you might be able to do for a future Giants-Patriots Super Bowl, which seems a little bit laughable at this moment in time in 2021, but you're going to be able to bet in New York, Michael Barr. Are you just, is that sound I hear you rubbing your hands together?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. In fact, I need to get some lotion because I have chapped my hands because I am excited about this. I know people are saying, hey, gambling's not my thing, and that's cool, but it's my thing. and it's going to be a good moneymaker for New York State. Now, they're still trying to iron this out because the state wants to kind of run it like the lottery.
Yeah.
And the casinos are like, well, wait a minute, we got to figure something out. So they got to work on those things. But, yeah, once New York State gets there, it's going to be probably the biggest market for gambling in the nation.
Barr will never go home. He'll just stay. He'll never leave the state of New York.
Poor Mrs. Barr is like, wow, you're really working late.
Yeah, baby, I'm working hard here.
It's a little bit suspicious of what you're doing. It's like, oh, it's just betting. Don't worry. It's just betting. Yeah, and that it is notable that they're taking a little bit of a different approach because, folks are skeptical about betting in some ways and sort of the ripple effects across society and people getting themselves in trouble. Not everyone is as responsible as you, Michael Barr. So it'll be interesting to see if this does become a little bit more of the model, as you say, based more on the lottery system and not as reliant on the traditional casinos. So we'll see. We'll see, Lynchy.
Up next on the show, we speak with Major League Baseball's Chief Baseball Development Officer, Tony Regans. That's straight ahead on Bloomberg Business of Sports. You can follow me on Twitter at Big Bar Sports.
And I'm Mike Lynch. You can follow me at LynchyWCVB.
And follow me, Jason Kelly, at Jason Kelly News. We're here each and every week for you at this time. And also catch our podcast that drops on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
Not completing high school.
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg terminal. The buy side and the sell side together, collaborating across markets and countries in real time, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network of over 325,000 financial professionals that helps power global markets. Isn't it time you join them? Request a demo at bloomberg.com/professional.
School was more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
This is your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Homes are about 17% more expensive right now than a year ago, according to Redfin, and the rising prices are triggering concern.
Our view is that we are in the early stages of a bubble.
Rick Palacios, Director of Research at John Burns Real Estate Consulting, says in this baby bubble, whole new groups of buyers are piling in.
It's flippers, it's iBuyers, so think like the Open Door, OfferPads of the world, single-family rental landlords, which are now institutionally backed by capital really across the world, pension, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds, vacations, foreign investors, and all of these alternative fractional ownership crowdfunding groups that are advertising themselves kind of like the Robin Hoods of real estate. That's the thing that worries me, I would say, the most.
But Palacios says the floor isn't going to drop out yet.
No imminent risk of a collapse. And honestly, the next 2 years are probably going to be the best years for housing in a decade plus.
And that's your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
After listening to Paul Sweeney and Matt Miller,
extraordinary science coming out of the biotech and pharmaceutical industries.
You'll not only have new insights.
What are the numbers you think you can hit?
You'll be confident that what you've learned is accurate.
I'd love to get your thoughts on what's happening in Europe.
Bloomberg Markets.
Even you're bringing it into next year.
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We're here each and every week for you at the same time talking to the biggest names in sports. I'm Jason Kelly along with Mike Lynch and Michael Barr.
With the 25th selection in the first round of the 2009 first-year player draft, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim select Michael Trout.
Well, that was a historic moment in baseball. Feels like we're having a lot of historic moments of late. So let's get into all of that with a guy who knows it all. We're talking about Tony Reagans. He is Major League Baseball's Chief Baseball Development Officer. Tony, really nice to have you with us.
Great to be with you guys. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
So let's start with that clip. You were the GM that made that call for Michael Trout, as he was called in the draft so formally. Take us back there. Take us back to that job in baseball as we get into this broader conversation of the state of baseball.
It was an awesome time for us as an organization. That particular moment, the drafting of Mike Trout, really started the year before when we traded for Mark Teixeira. Teixeira ended up not re-signing with the Angels, which really gave us an opportunity to be in the position to take Mike in the 2009 draft. And if you look at that clip, Trout is actually the only player in the room at the draft in New York in Secaucus at the MLB Network studios. And I think he was nervous because he thought he probably would go sooner than he did. But, we were fortunate that a lot of teams passed up on him, and we had the 24th and 25th selection that year. He was our guy. Our scouting staff, our development people did a great job in recognizing the talent, and we made the call. Kid from the Northeast New Jersey, and arguably now is the best player in the game. So cool moment for myself and the Angels organization and Angels fans.
Tony, sir, I don't know where to start. There's so many things that you have in your resume. Probably the one that jumps out is that in MLB history, you're one of just 6 African-American GMs. Can you expand on that and what that moment means for the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's an accomplishment that I didn't take lightly. I understood, what it meant in terms of historical perspective. I understood, and just having conversations with guys like Bob Watson, what to expect in terms of interacting with other general managers in the league and negotiating with agents and player relationships and the whole process was just something that I didn't take lightly. I thought I was able to communicate well and establish good relationships around the game over the years. I'd been at that time in the game for about 17 years, and so I had good relationships, but I didn't take it lightly and relied on a lot of people for information and how I went about my business. And so I just rolled up my sleeves and kept doing what I always did, and that was try to work as hard as I could, be informed, create good information, and make sound decisions. A lot of those decisions worked out really well, and some of them didn't work out so well. But we had fun while we were doing it. I think our club was successful, and we won 100 games for the first time in the history of the organization, and I think the only time that the Angels have won 100 games in the season. So there was a lot of cool moments, but being an African-American GM, I think I'm the only one in the history of the game that started, as an intern and didn't play professionally, but ended up running the club. So a lot of cool moments for me and my family, and something that I didn't take lightly.
I just want to follow up on that. You earned this job because you worked your way up through the Angels organization, starting as an intern. How many young African-American men or women who have dreams to be the next Tony Reagans have you encountered since you had that job, and have you mentored and advised?
Surprisingly, there are a number that want to go down this path, but don't really know how to do it. And and that was me. Back as a senior out of college at Cal State Fullerton, didn't know how to go about even getting into an organization. It was just by fluke that I went down to the Angel Stadium and did the internship, or got the internship with the Angels. It was just a friend of mine that heard about that internship program. And so really access is really important. And now at the league, we're doing things that are creating that access, going to HBCUs and interacting with students at that level, creating internship programs here at the league office and around the 30 clubs. So I think that access and that information about how you go about getting into the game is extremely important, and something that we're doing a better job, as opposed to how we were doing it 25, 30 years ago.
And so fair to say, Tony, that the conversation has elevated and expanded, especially over the last year, where it feels like even societally and certainly across sports and Major League Baseball in particular, we're talking about diversity of voices.
Diversity, just in the last 12, 14 months, there's a heightened awareness, a heightened sense of diversity and what diversity, equity, inclusion, what that all means. And here at the league, it's something that we, not shied away from. We've been intentional in terms of creating programming, creating opportunities for African Americans specifically to be a part of our game. Some of those jobs and those opportunities are behind the scenes and not out front, not on the diamond, not in the front office, but at the league level, and some of those are starting to pay huge benefits to organizations. We see a lot of kids now starting to climb, like I did many years ago. And it takes time, and something that we're patient with. But we want to create as many diverse opportunities as we can, and it's something that we've been intentional about. Commissioner has been very vocal, not only to the front office here at the league, but the 30 owners as well. So we're looking forward to a more diverse product. Obviously, our product on the field is very diverse, but in front offices around the league looking at a more diverse product.
Stay tuned for more of our conversation with Major League Baseball's Chief Baseball Development Officer. That's Tony Regan. That's straight ahead on Bloomberg Business of Sports. In the meantime, find me on Twitter. I'm Jason Kelly at Jason Kelly News.
And I'm Mike Lynch. You can follow me at Lynchy WCVB.
And I'm Michael Barr on Twitter at Big Bar Sports. Download the show to hear even more of this interview, our extended version. Catch that wherever you get your podcasts.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of BNY Mellon's Pershing explains.
As sophisticated investors demand more from their advisors, advisory firms, in turn, need to rely on their custodian to help them grow their complex businesses. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, supporting the rapid growth of RIAs is our #1 priority. We understand what it means to deliver true value to our clients who are looking for a custodian that is aligned with their best interest and delivers high-value solutions, all in an open architecture environment with flexibility, choice, and transparency. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength, resiliency, and high-touch service that BNY Mellon Pershing provides. When you work with Pershing, we put your business first. Can your custodian say that?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC.
This is Daniel Blazer. I'm a trustee of the Jewish Communal Fund and chair of the Special Gifts Committee. Back in March, when the world came to a grinding halt with the coronavirus crisis, I turned to the Jewish Communal Fund to make grants to charities that were important to me. Our community of fund holders responded generously, and so did JCF. Through our Special Gifts Fund, which functions like an endowment, JCF made a grant of $1 million to UJA Federation of New York and the Metropolitan Council on Jewish Poverty to fight food insecurity and provide much-needed assistance to Holocaust survivors and single parents who have been impacted by the crisis. If you are not using a donor-advised fund for your giving, now is the time. Working with the Jewish Communal Fund is easy. It's convenient, it's efficient, and it enables you to focus on your charitable giving, especially in difficult moments like these. To find out how JCF can maximize your charitable impact and reduce your tax burden, visit jcfny.org.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. During the pandemic, much has been said about the so-called Quarantine 15, the pounds people have put on because of decreased activity combined with unhealthy snacking. But sales trends also show that much of our snacking has been healthier.
We saw a surge in demand early on in the pandemic.
Peter McGinnis, president of Greek yogurt maker Chobani, cites data from Nielsen showing that from March last year to March this year, sales increased, reflecting similar experiences of other healthy snack producers.
We've not seen any slow in demand. We think that will continue because healthy habits have been formed.
It's from that momentum that Chobani looks to reach more people through a new pilot partnership with PepsiCo, bringing healthier stuff to colleges and convenience stores in the Northeast, where right now PepsiCo's Cheetos, Cracker Jacks, and other less healthy fare dominate the shelves.
They have a very sophisticated distribution network that can get into certain pockets that our products weren't as available before.
As we try to transition from the Quarantine 15 to the post-vaccine lean. Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
The following is a message from PGIM.
Welcome to Outsea in 60, Perspectives from PGIM Thought Leaders. Here's Lisa Davis, Impact Investing Portfolio Manager at PGIM Real Estate.
I think we used to believe in ESG circles that climate change was the great systemic risk to financial markets that we needed to find a way to account for. And the challenge was to connect the individual investments that we were making to addressing climate risk at a systemic level. I think the challenge now that I see is that inequality around the globe is an equally important systemic risk, often connected to climate risk, that we have to address in financial markets.
Hear more PGIM perspectives at pgim.com. That's PGIM.com. Partner with PGIM, the investment management business of Prudential. These statements are not intended to be investment advice and should not be used as the basis for any investment decision.
It takes coordination to read the latest business news while spreading jam on toast.
Whoops.
Listening takes no effort at all.
It had a major beat on industrial free cash flow.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
President Biden is pushing up the timeline.
Karen Moscow and Nathan Hager.
We have a deal in the gambling industry.
Weekday mornings at 5 Eastern.
Officials have a warning for hedge fund managers.
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Police are releasing the identity of the man they're searching for in a triple murder in Austin, Texas.
He is tentatively identified as Stephen Nicholas Broderick. He's a black male, 41 years of age.
Austin Interim Police Chief Joseph Chacon says police believe Broderick shot and killed 3 people, 2 Hispanic females and 1 black male. The search is ongoing. Police do not believe there's any threat to the public, but want people to stay indoors and report suspicious activity. Dr. Anthony Fauci believes a decision on the pause in Johnson & Johnson vaccinations will be made by the end of this week. On NBC's Meet the Press, Fauci says while blood clots reported are severe, so far it appears there have been only 6 reported instances in over 7 million people vaccinated. A new poll reveals most Americans want term limits for Supreme Court justices. That's the latest. I'm Cameron Fairchild.
And I'm Susanna Palmer in the Bloomberg Newsroom.